In collaboration with the Cyprus Mail, this is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Haralambous.
Coming up on this week's programme, we meet the author of a book that's being launched in Nicosia tonight. She's used her experiences as a volunteer on the island of Lesbos during the huge crisis of refugees a couple of years ago to make what she calls creative non-fiction.
So it's based on my experiences. In 2015 I left Cyprus and I worked as a volunteer in a refugee camp in Lesbos. So kind of at the peak of the crisis when there was a lot of people coming through on boats. I mean, we all have those images in our minds.
And we hear all about the support that's on offer through the Nicosia Municipality for third country nationals and particularly their children.
Actually, children, they do not see themselves as migrants. If you ask them where they are from, they will answer immediately from Cyprus, most of them. Because for them it is not under question where they are from. They know their parents are coming from other countries, but as far as we can see this here, the last 10 years, it is not an issue for the children.
There's a book launch tonight at 7 o'clock in Nicosia, and we're joined on the programme this week by the author, Melissa Heckers. The book is called Amir's Blue Elephant. So, Melissa, before we talk about that, let's talk a little bit about the other books you've written, because I think a lot of people know you as a writer of children's stories. You've done several, and then you've done the colouring in books as well. Let's deal with those first, okay, and then how we moved on to this one.
Okay, so back in 2007 I published my first children's book. There's three of them, three storybooks that are written in English and Greek. And after that I kind of moved on to more educational books, I'd say, and these were three colouring books, interactive colouring books, that are based on the natural heritage of the island. So they speak about Cape Greco, they speak of the akamas and the endemic plants, and the fortifications of the old city here in Nicosia.
And so how did you come to write Amir's Blue Elephant? Because it's a departure, isn't it, from both those genres? Absolutely.
I mean, I've always envisioned that I would eventually get into, more novel writing. And I was actually invited last November at a writer's residency in Spoleto in Italy. And there, through the mentorship that I got there, it was, I felt it was an opportunity to kind of, experiment with a new genre with the support of a mentor. And so initially I did go with a hat on, saying, okay, I'm gonna write a fiction story. I did want to write about my experience with refugees over the years, but after a couple of days it became very clear that I'm not ready to write fiction yet. I don't know whether it's my journalism background or kind of my affiliation with really sticking to the facts that I struggled with. So in the end, what came out was identified as creative non-fiction. So it's non-fiction, but it's I've had the liberty, if you like, to be creative with it, to invent characters, to string the story along. And although it does purvey instances and situations and characters that I've encountered and that are real, the threading of the story and how I manipulate the story in order to create one main hero, the kind of the climax of the story, and the kind of the arching of the story is all there, which is something you perhaps wouldn't have managed if you really stuck to the facts and created.
But it's based on your factual experiences.
Absolutely. So it's based on my experiences. In 2015 I left Cyprus and I worked as a volunteer in a refugee camp in Lesbos. So kind of at the peak of the crisis when there was a lot of people coming through on boats. I mean, we all have those images in our minds. So it's part of the book. I'd say it's not the book's not divided, but half of the book, the first half, is very much based in Lesbos, and what was kind of my imprints of what I saw there. And then the lead character comes back to Cyprus, and again, gets involved in the local refugee community and kind of horns in onto one character to kind of explain the situation in Cyprus as opposed to Greece. Or obviously, when I was in Greece, it was a crisis management kind of atmosphere. We were in a temporary camp where hundreds of people coming in and out through the day. In Cyprus, we have an emergency camp, but it's obviously on a smaller scale, and you have camps like Kofino, which people are free to come in and out. They're not kind of obliged to stay there. So it's a different atmosphere. And on the Cyprus front of the book, I don't really go into the camps. I'm more depicting the reality of refugees within the city of Nicosia.
So how did you do the research for that? You obviously must have got to know some of the people that you're telling their stories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so on camp, it's obvious, you're in contact with people all the time. And actually on my return from Lesbos, I continued. So I was going to Kofino once a week. I continued writing as a journalist about, refugee stories and everything. And I got involved with Caritas, who, I would go and visit the women's shelter. I would go to Caritas itself. And I think once you get in touch with 1 to 10 refugees, then suddenly you get in contact with more and more and more. And, through events that other people were organizing, I was obviously in contact. And I did land up having 2-3 refugees that I really focused on, and they obviously introduced me to other people, and really, I think the more you spend time with someone, the deeper you can go. It takes time. So I think over the period of 3-4 years, this was my reality, very much so. And so
building trust must have been quite difficult, because a lot of these people have suffered so much to get here.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the building trust demands time, and not just spending one afternoon or a couple of hours. So keep on meeting the same peoples. There's obviously sometimes it's very, very difficult also because of language barriers, the not understanding. And I think once they realize that you're consistently there, if they reach out to you, you do respond, you try and tend to the needs that you can, then that comes. But obviously it's a time thing. And also if you come through other people, you just don't arrive on your own in a camp or in a community. If someone introduces you, then that becomes easier.
So who's Amir?
So Amir is, the book is not actually about Amir. Amir is a little boy that I met on camp in Lesbos. And before I left, my daughter had given me a teddy bear that she wanted me to give to someone when I went there. And so Amir is actually the little boy who got my daughter's teddy bear, and who, he left a huge imprint in my mind. I think it was one of the first little children that I was in contact with on camp, and it's quite impressive to see a child in a refugee camp, because you envision, or you don't, you can't envision how they survive through this, what they get from it, how they're feeling. It's very difficult for them to communicate, perhaps. And so he was, I think he was the first encounter I had with that generation, let's say. And he's important to me. He's, linked to my daughter, so that's how the name came through. He does appear, obviously, in the book, but it's not the story of Amir himself.
And what about the blue elephant? Is the teddy bear an elephant?
The teddy bear's a blue elephant, yes.
Okay. So it is, again, based on fact. I don't suppose, of course, that you know what's happened to Amir.
Amir, no. I didn't have contact. I met him with his father, and I never got to meet his mom. So usually with women, I would manage to maybe it was easier to get in contact at times, and I could attain perhaps a telephone number for them. But in Amir's situation, I met him because he was in search of a pair of shoes. It was kind of, he came to, the clothes tent, as we called it, And it was a brief encounter. They got the shoes, they left, and so I don't actually know what happened to Amir. No.
So what's going to happen this evening? It's at Castelliodisa, I think, in Old Nicosia.
Yeah.
Run us through the programme. I presume there'll be some readings, will there?
Yes, I will be reading an excerpt from the book. There will be an address by the head of UNHCR here in Cyprus, and also by the head of UNESCO. He will also be addressing briefly, and then I'll address with a few words and an excerpt from the book.
And it's limited numbers because, of course, you've got to social distance and it's not a huge space. So how are you going to manage that?
Yeah, it's not a big space. So there's a limited... I mean, the protocol is that you have 50 people in the room at one time. So we will have 50 chairs in place. Whoever comes first will be seated. And unfortunately, the rest will have to kind of stand back. But there will be drinks available outside. The book will be available outside, and I'm planning as soon as the talks are over, I'll make my way outside, and hopefully we can socialise. I can reply to questions. We're going to have to adapt to the situation.
So is it a good idea, obviously, for people to get there early? What about booking? Can they say definitely 3 of us are coming, or you just first come, first served?
We haven't done any bookings. We have done 2 bookings from 2 people who are coming all the way from Paphos, and I think we can justify that. But other than that, unfortunately, management-wise, it was just because we were caught a bit off guard. So there isn't any bookings.
So 6:30 probably is a good time, or even a little earlier, to get to Castelliodisa if you'd like to hear Melissa Heckers reading from her book talking about Amir's Blue Elephant, which documents non-fiction but creatively of her work with refugees and asylum seekers.
In collaboration with the Cyprus Mail, this is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Haralambous.
The biggest achievement of Crime Stoppers has been the ability of the public to be able to give information about crime anonymously.
There's no way I could have kept prostituting without the drugs. There's no way I could have had my body used like a public toilet, because that's actually what prostitution is.
And then the 4th series I started 3 days after I'd won the Oscar, so the whole of the Monarch of the Glen experience was all interplatted with the Gosford Park Oscar experience.
I was working with Ronnie James Dio, and David was going to reform Whitesnake in 2003.
Cyprus was chosen because Cyprus is a stable, peaceful and secure place.
We have to really look closely. What are we doing with children? What are we doing with adolescents? And what are we doing with adults that can help them move into a more literate situation?
The ones that I'm proudest of are the ones that were true discoveries, where we found something we didn't know existed.
There are support services that have been running for several years now at the Nicosia Municipality, the target being children, and particularly the children of migrants, asylum seekers and refugees. Joining us on this week's programme is the programme officer who coordinates children's programmes at the Nicosia Municipality. She is Katerina Haralambous More, and she's joining us to tell us about this year's programme, because it's up and running already, despite the fact that the schools are not yet all back in classes, and the support that is offered to children and therefore their parents who can go out and work is a very important part of this particular programme. So, Katerina, a little bit first, if you will, about the history, because this has been going on, as we said, for several years now, and it has been met, I think, with a lot of gratitude, we could say, by the migrant families who, if they have small children, really it frees them up to go and get a job.
So the program started in 2012, and it is actually an added program to the first program we started in 2008, also addressed to migrant mothers at that time. And the new program It is addressed to third country nationals. As known, Nicosia Municipality hosts a high percentage of migrants, especially around the old city of Nicosia, where we are at the moment, where we have the main programs running. And it is very important to offer services, especially daycare services, covering both the school period and the holidays. We are offering, for example, from yesterday already an all-day program from 7 a.m. until 6 p.m. to cover this week with until school is starting on Monday.
Once the school's open, do you then take it from lunchtime until the evening?
Exactly. We pick them up with the bus at the school. We have 2 buses traveling around the Nicosia Municipality primary schools. We pick the children up, we bring them here. They can have here their lunch, then a break, and they start then first of all with the support for doing their homework. We have 2 teachers supporting them to finish their homework. And normally we offer a lot of other activities. I have here, for example, the last year program for the activities. We are cooperating with Sistema. We offer violin classes. We have Zumba. We have chess classes. We offer dance classes. They have almost every day. They have art. They have almost every day an activity. They can participate. It is not obligatory. It is an offer to the children in order to be active and to have recreational activities and possibilities.
This is all part, isn't it, of an integration programme? Because
Exactly.
The most important thing for people who have found themselves in a strange country, the children
Yes.
probably don't speak the language. They pick it up at school, I'm sure. But it's all a very strange environment for these people. And how do you get them to integrate with the local population? Because I'm assuming that the children who all come for these schemes are themselves migrants. How do they get to make friends with Cypriot children?
Actually, children, they do not see themselves as migrants. If you ask them where they are from, they will answer immediately from Cyprus, most of them. Because for them it is not under question where they are from. They know their parents are coming from other countries. But as far as we can see this here, the last 10 years, it is not an issue for the children. It is most an issue for the parents, which in most of the cases do not speak Greek. It's a barrier. It is actually the most important thing, the language, considering the integration progress.
And considering if they want to get a job,
Exactly.
it's almost imperative that they speak Greek.
Exactly.
So I know in the past, although you're in charge of the children's programmes,
Yes.
you probably do know a little bit about some of the adult programmes that have
Yes, of
also
course.
been run here. So tell us a bit about those.
Yes, of course. We are trying always to combine our projects and our programs so we can offer people various possibilities. At the moment we do not have any program for the language running, but we had the last one ended last year in summer. And of course it is very important that we offer the parents various activities and also the possibility to learn the language during their children are cared here. And we are facing now, during this quarantine period, we are facing another issue, this digital inclusion and exclusion. And it is starting to get a new challenge, I would say, to bring especially migrants, to give them the knowledge to use the internet in favor of them. And for example, we are sending most of the things meanwhile either per SMS, most of the announcements. We are sending them either per SMS or we have posts on the internet. So it is so simple nowadays to take a text and translate it online. There are so many free translation services, but we realized many of them, although they have their smartphones, they can't use those services properly in order to support their children, to support themselves, to get informed. And it is, I must say, it is something we are facing now more and more, and we are thinking about offering also those classes, basic
computer skills
or basic digital skills.
This, I assume, is a problem as well, because some of the school lessons, because of the overcrowding in some schools, may be offered online. Do these children have tablets or computers at home? Because if they don't, they're just going to miss out.
Yes, that is what I was referring before. We call it the digital exclusion. And of course, many of the Cypriot children also didn't have all those possibilities during the quarantine, but migrant children are facing maybe more concentrated this problem. Few of the children are having these possibilities. Most of them don't. So if we think about the last 6 months, we had a period of 4 months without classes, without actually, yes. So if you have children at home where parents can support them to do their homework, to answer questions where they have difficulties, it's more easier to close the gap. If you don't have this possibility, of course the gap is getting bigger and bigger.
Traditionally, in other countries, we hear that the children of migrants in particular are high achievers. They want to do well. They want to make friends. They want to be the best. Is that the case with the children that you see coming in here?
Yes, of course. Most of the children we have here, they are very good actually pupils. They are doing very good at school. But the thing is, I think everybody, migrant or Cypriot or everybody, would like to belong to a society. And the only thing for them is also to give them the feeling that they are belonging to this country. As I said before, they feel actually like Cypriots. So if you don't give them the feeling that they are equal citizens of this country, if you don't give them similar and same possibilities and equal possibilities, you will lose them. That's why we have already some serious problems with teenagers, because there are not enough social programs to support this process, to be at their side.
So is it only primary school children you deal with?
Yes, we are dealing only with primary school children and some pre-primary children.
So what happens once they leave the primary school, they go to secondary school? Are they on their own?
They are not on their own. The youth board has also a lot of activities, or they had a lot of activities before, and children, of course, they can continue receiving some possibilities. But of course, they are going into this adolescence period, and
so it's more
teenagers are more difficult to handle with. And this is the time when you can lose them, when we can have. Yes, I wouldn't say gangs, but of course
Behaviour that's not really accepted in society.
Yes, exactly. They separate themselves, they don't keep the contact to the others and to the society.
So how many children are you catering for? This year, I presume, have they signed up? You have to know the numbers and you have to know which schools the buses are going to go to and so on. How many kids on average do you have each year?
So I must say we are running here 2 programs together. The children, they actually don't know to which program they are belonging because we don't separate children. We are offering all of them the same services. From Monday we are expecting 40 children. We didn't register actually so many children we could normally offer services because of the COVID situation.
How did you select which ones you accepted and which you left out?
Actually, we didn't have to select this time. But if we had to select, we would see which parents are working both, or where we have one parent families, where we have difficulties to take any care of their children. And we would, of course, give priority to those families.
So you'll be doing the social distancing and presumably trying to, with that in mind, still do all the activities, the dancing and so on?
Actually, we are not allowed yet to offer activities. We have to keep people outside the center. From Monday, when we start again regularly, we have to wait until we will be able to run the activities, the evening activities.
But at least you've got a lovely garden here and
yes,
a beautiful
exactly.
space for the kids to do whatever they do. I suppose you can put desks outside and they can get on with it either on the veranda or on the grass.
Yes, of course, they can play table tennis, they can play football, they can do a lot of activities outside. And we must say that from 2:30 until 4:30, actually, most of them are doing their homework, because it's a very important part of the school period program, the homework support.
So they get assistance with homework. They come here, they
yes.
get some lunch, they get their assistance with homework, and then I presume another break and playtime until
Exactly.
they're collected.
Yes.
And you also give them, I think, an evening snack.
Exactly, yes. So actually, we give, if we have children waiting until 6 for their parents, we give a second one most of the time, a second snack. Because, of course, from 1 o'clock until 6 o'clock, most of them are hungry. They are playing a lot. They are small children. Yes, we have fruits every day available as well as snacks. Yes.
Healthy snacks, and that's just part of the support services that have been set up for migrant children, and it's all part of the work of the Nicosia Multifunctional Centre, which is on the top of the ancient walls of our capital city. We've been talking to Caterina Haralambos More, who is the programme officer coordinating those children's programmes there. The Multifunctional Foundation offers a wealth of training and education programmes for third country nationals. We didn't have time to cover them all. But at the weekends, it does have cultural identity preservation programmes for people of Chinese origin and Arab origins. And they include art, gastronomy and, of course, language classes in Arabic and Chinese. There's also speech therapy and remediation teaching for children of third country nationals who have learning difficulties, and there are orientation and social skills seminars as well. You can find out more on the Facebook page if you go to New Channels for Integration on Facebook, and there's also an information centre at Solomou Square, that's near the bus station in Nicosia. It's open every Sunday from 9 in the morning until 2 p.m. from the 20th of September. Well, that about wraps up this edition of the Cyprus News Digest. Many thanks for your company. Hope you'll join me next week. Till we meet again, take care and God bless. Bye-bye now.